லிங்க் கிரியேட் பண்ணிட்டேன், உங்களுக்கு அனுப்புறேன்.
லிங்க் போட்டு முடிச்சு விட்றியா? உங்க குரூப் தானே வரா மெயினா இல்லையா? நாளைக்கு தெரியும் குரூப்புக்கு போட்டல
सदा बालरूपापि विघ्नाद्रिहन्त्री महादन्ति वक्त्रापि पञ्चास्य मान्या विधीन्द्राविमृग्या गणेशाभिधामे विधत्तां श्रियं कापि कल्याणमूर्तिः मयूराधिरूढं महावाक्यरूढं मनोहारिगेहं महच्चित्तदेहं मयि देवदेवं महादेव बालं महावेदभावं भजे लोकपालम् तोर्भिर्युक्ता चतुर्भिस्फटिकमणिमयीम् अक्षमालां ददानां हस्तेनैकेन पद्मं सितमपि च शुकं पुस्तकं चापरेण भासा कुन्देन्दुशङ्खस्फटिकमणिनिभा भासमाना समाना सा मे वाग्देवतेयं निवसतु वदने सर्वदा सुप्रसन्ना ऐंकार ह्रींकार रहस्ययुक्त श्रींकारगूढार्थमहाविभूत्या ओंकारमर्म प्रतिपादिनीभ्यां नमो नमः श्रीगुरुपादुकाभ्याम् सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् कुण्डलिकुमारिकुटिले चण्डिचराचर सवित्रि चामुण्डे गुणिने गुहारिणे गुह्ये गुरुमूर्ते त्वां नमामि कामाक्षी. A very good evening to all of you. Today we are going to talk and experience about the divine feminine, the goddess, not in some temple or in some idol, but within us, amongst us as the Shakti. Navaratri is all about these inner battles where we realize, or it's the time to realize rather, that the Devi is within us and she manifests every moment in everything that we do, in everything that we think, and in everything that we say. In our courage, in our clarity, in our compassion, in our resilience. The battles that we hear about in the Puranas, in Markandeya Purana, in Devi Mahatmya, in Devi Bhagavata Purana, they're not only Puranic tales, they're actually allegories of our inner struggles. So today, let us walk through a few of these stories and see how Devi's battles are truly our own battles, battles with our own inner enemies. And this Navaratri, this Sharan Navaratri, let us experience her in our lives. So, first, I'd like you to take through the many stories, the most popular yet profound stories that we find in Devi Bhagavata, Devi Mahatmya. Almost all of us are aware, but let us also understand through these stories how we connect with that, how they're about our inner demons. So, I would like to take Devi Mahatmya as a primary text for this discussion, with obviously allied references to a lot of other texts by saints, acharyas, for better understanding. The first story that actually comes up is that of Madhu and Kaitabha, right?
Okay.
So, the story starts with Mahavishnu resting on the cosmic ocean. He's in Yoga Nidra. He's in deep Yoga Nidra. And from his ears arise two demons, Madhu and Kaitabha. Devi Matya says, Vishnu Karnamalodbhuto. Two demons arise from the earwax of Mahavishnu. And they are called Madhu and Kaitabha. Now they are wreaking havoc in all the three worlds. And not knowing what to do, Brahma just sits and contemplates. He knows that he has to pray to the highest form of Shakti. Sarva Chaitanya Rupamtam Adyam Shaktim Cha Dhimahi. And he prays to Mahamaya. He he says a beautiful stuti that's in Tantra referred to as Tantric Ratri Suktam. Tvam Swaha, Tvam Swadha, Tvam Hi Vashatkara Swaratmika. That's how the stuti starts. And Brahma goes on to give a very profound description of the Devi as Mahamaya. He is referring to the Mahamaya in the Stuti. It's a very detailed, it's a very profound praise Stuti for the Devi. Uh, he just surrenders completely. He says, Yaya Tvaya Jagat Srishta Jagat Patyati Yo Jagat. You are the one who creates the universe, and the universe is totally dependent on you. And therefore, he prays to her, you who are holding up Vishnu right now in Yoga Nidra, may you please leave his body. May you please awaken him so that he can fight these demons. And when he does that, Mahamaya, the Shakti Mahakali, emerges from Vishnu's Nidra. She awakens him. And with this power, Mahavishnu fights Madhu and Kaitaba. Devi Mahatmya says it's Pancha Varsha Sahasrani. The fight goes on for 5,000 years, and with his preserving intelligence, uh, Mahavishnu slays Madhu and Kaitaba. There's a very interesting anecdote here. uh, Madhu and Kaitava ask or rather grant a boon to Mahavishnu because the war didn't seem to end anywhere. And Mahavishnu says, yes, I do want a boon, and the boon is that I should be able to slay both of you. And that's how the story says, you know, attacking them psychologically as well. Mahavishnu was able to defeat them. But in the story, the success is attributed to uh, Mahamaya in the form of Mahakali, right? But we need to understand the deeper context here. There's a lot of inner symbolism in this story. Madhu stands for indulgence. So in Sanskrit, Madhu means extreme sweet, right? The kind of sweet that can, make you say, I don't need sweet anymore. That's indulgence, inertia. And then Kaitava is, being stuck with that intelligence. And therefore you're distracted, you're deluded. So that is Maya for you. And Mahavishnu stands for the preserving intelligence, the intelligence within us that preserves us. So when the preserving intelligence was asleep in Yoga Nidra, the Maya, Mahakali had to be awakened. She had to be summoned to awaken this preserving intelligence. She is that fierce awakening power that destroys inertia and dullness. So, which is why in the Prathama Charitra, the first canto of Devi Mahatmya, the gods praise her as Mahakali. She is that, she is energy, she is Shakti. But here, she had to take the form of that fierce power that destroys indulgence, destroys inertia, and destroys confusion, delusion. So let us consider this. Whenever you've overcome tamas in your life, whenever you have shaken off indulgence, laziness, you have shaken off inertia, something within you that awakens you up, right? Some determination that makes you act. That is Mahakali arising from within you. So she is not that distant Mahakali who awakened Vishnu to fight Madhu and Kaitava. Rather, she is that Mahakali who arises in you every time you want to shake off your inertia as well. So that was about the first story that comes up in Devi Mahatmya. The next story is very interesting. It's called Madhyama Charitra in Devi Mahatmya. And it is a famous story about Mahishasura. In most Durga Puja pandals, we see this form of Devi, right? That she's slaying Mahishasura. So Mahisha is buffalo, right? And Asura is Asura, right? So Mahishasura is the buffalo demon. Um, because of his tapas at one point in time, he became so powerful that he defeated the Devatas. He took away the Havirbhaga that each of these Devatas received. Havirbhaga is their portion in the sacrifices. Whatever offerings was given to them, that was all taken away by Mahishasura for himself. He made them flee the heavens, the Swargaloka, and he took up Indra's throne. Usually, when this happens, you would have read a lot of this in the Puranas. Indra goes to Lord Brahma for advice. I am driven away, please help. Right? And together they approach Mahavishnu and Maheshwara. So they all sit together and contemplate what is to be done with this Mahishasura, because he's slowly eating up on the spiritual prowess, the spiritual power of all the devatas. And something had to be done. As the demigods went on describing the atrocities of Mahishasura, Maheshwara and Mahavishnu were seen in considerable amount of anger. Their brows were knit. That is what Devi Mahatmya says. And when all the devas were congregating there, thinking of a solution to this problem with Mahishasura, there arose boundless light. Anyesham chaiva devanam shakradinam sharirataha निर्गतं सुमहत्तेजस् चैक्यं समगच्छत अतीव तेजसः कूटं ज्वलन्तमिव पर्वतं तदृशस्ते सुरास्तत्र ज्वाला व्याप्त दिगंतरम. A light arose from the bodies of all the gods and demigods, starting from Indra onwards, and together it consolidated into extreme bright shining light, and it was shining like a mountain, and it spread across the skies on the earth. Right, it was the light had spread in all the 10 directions. That is what Devi Mahatmya says. And atulam tatra tattejah sarvadeva sharirajam, in that incomparable light that had come from, that had consolidated from the lights that had emanated from all the devas. Ekastham tadabhunnari vyapta lokatrayam tusha. There arose the form of a divine female, and her form had filled all the three worlds. That's what Devi Mahatmya says. And it goes on to describe how each of the powers that had consolidated had created her beautiful form. Yadabhut Chambhavam Tejas Tena Jayata Tanmukham. The beautiful face came from the power of Shambhu, Maheshwara. Her shoulders had come from the power of Mahavishnu. Um, her middle body had come from the power of Indra, right? And so on. Sunlight um, consolidated into her toes, right? And so on. There's this beautiful description of how each of her body parts, I mean, each of her, uh, the beautiful parts of her divine form actually came from the power of each of the devas. And finally, when that beautiful form was conceived and consolidated, each of the devatas gave away their powers, their respective weapons to this Devi. So she took the form of a beautiful maiden, but with a fierce attitude. There were 18 arms holding 18 different weapons, and she was riding the lion. So, which is a symbolism for dharma, right? And as she rode the lion, and as she entered the battlefield, Mahishasura's battlefield, the demons were spellbound. They didn't know what to do. They were basically surprised that a feminine form actually walked into the battlefield. And she looked astoundingly beautiful but intensely fierce. And she gave this huge laughter which filled all the three worlds. And everybody was so frightened by that, right? And she first defeated all of Mahishasura's armies. Um, this is beautiful description about how each army consisted of lakhs of chariots, lakhs of trained warriors, and she defeated all of them. Um, some got their throat cut, some got their limbs cut, some got their bodies cut into half, and it was a bloody battle. Fields of rivers of blood flowed. That is what Devi Mahatmya says, and the Devi did that all by herself. And Mahishasura was spellbound because he didn't know what to do now. He had never seen a feminine form, which was beautiful yet fierce, do this. Right? And finally, when it seemed as if he was losing the battle, right? Mahishasura changed forms to deceive her. And the Devi also went behind him and finally slayed him by piercing his heart. Right? So she battled Mahishasura for 9 days. And on the 10th day, right, the defeat of Mahishasura happened, which is exactly the period of Navaratri. So the 10th day, the Vijayadashmi day, is when the Devi uh, slayed Mahishasura, right? So let us understand this beautiful story for ourselves in our purpose, right? Mahishasura, when you understand the context in which Mahishasura is introduced in the story, he is basically arrogance, ego, right? He's that shape shifting pride. He has that ego that no, he is the ruler of all the three worlds now. And he was drunk in pride, right? So, to defeat the energy of ego, the energy of resistance to change, to defeat shape shifting pride, the energy of the devas, the primordial force of the world manifested in form of a woman that transforms pride into humility and grants balance, which was the 18-armed Mahalakshmi. So in the Madhyama Charitra, we get to hear about Mahalakshmi, the 18th-armed Mahalakshmi. So let us understand how is she present in our lives. So every time you've chosen humility over pride, you've chosen to go humble when you actually wanted to be proud, and you've chosen to transform when you actually didn't want to do that, when there was a lot of resistance, but you chose transformation, right? And you've chosen to rise above your ego. You've chosen greater good, higher good for everybody on top of your own individual growth. Then you're actually enacting the real Vijayadashmi within. There arises Mahalakshmi within you. So this was all about Madhyama Charitra. And when the Devatas saw that the Devi had defeated Mahishasura, they showered flowers on her. There was a lot of celebration on the earth, heavens, and the Patala Loka as well. In fact, Adi Shankara in the Mahishasura Mardini Stotra very beautifully says that the goddess acted in favor of the wives of the demons who prayed to her for their husbands' safety. So, such was the glory of the slayer of Mahishasura, the Mahishasura Mardini. She is the Ashtadasha Bhuja Mahalakshmi, the 18-armed Mahalakshmi. So, that was about another story from the Madhyama Charitra of Devi Mahatma. And then comes the Uttama Charitra, the last portion of Devi Mahatma. Obviously, there are several other things. But the last and a very elaborate story is that of the slaying of two demons called Shumbha and Nishumbha. So this appears in chapters 5 to 10 in the Devi Mahatmya. So Shumbha and Nishumbha, in a different period of time, take over Indra's throne. And after the slaying of Mahishasura, the Devi had granted boons that whenever you are in trouble, whenever you are in danger, you just have to call out for me and I will come to you. So, remembering that, the Devatas now called out to the Devi, because the last time she just vanished from their sight. So, they didn't know exactly where to look for her. So, they went to the shores of the Ganges in the Himalayas and prayed for her. And then the daughter of Himalayas, Parvati, when she came for a bath, she listened to their pleas, she listened to their stuti. And she asked, whom are you praising? Whom are you looking for? Whom are you calling out with so much desperation? And from her body arose a bright, effulgent form, which is called Kaushiki. And she says, they are looking for me. She's so effulgent, she is knowledge incarnate. And that beautiful form, the Devatas are mesmerized by the divinity of the form. And at the same time, Shumbha and Nishumbha's some spy, right? He happens to see this beautiful maiden. He goes to Shumbha and Nishumbha and says, you have every single valuable ever in existence with you. You have the um, great steed Uchchaishravas, the most highest evolution of a horse, Uchchaishravas. You have the greatest of stones, rubies, emeralds with you. Everything in the heavens is in your control. But somehow, I feel you deserve to have this maiden with you. You deserve to become her lord. Thus he says. So Shumbha and Nishumbha now, you know, the fire being fanned, they're curious about who this beautiful woman was and why is this spy describing so much about her, and deciding that there must be something very unique and special about her. And since they took pride in hoarding valuables, the most valuable things in the universe, they decided that this woman should also be there in my harem. So they send a messenger and ask her to come down with the messenger, who this form of Devi called Kaushiki, who has this bright effulgent form. However, Devi says, when I was young, I created a resolution. I didn't know that you were going to come ask for my hand. So I decided that anybody who has to marry me has to win me over in a battle. So this now became an open challenge to Shumba and Nishumba, right? It was a question about their prowess. So Shumba and Nishumba had to show some reaction, and they reacted by sending a demon called Dhumra Lochana along with his armies. Now, Dhumra Lochana, as you can understand with the name, his eyes were smoky. He was that terrible Asura with that terrible form. And he came with a huge army and he was given orders that if she doesn't come, drag her by her hair and bring her to me. However, as Dhumralochana approached, this makes up for a very funny story for the kids. As Dhumralochana approached, Devi just did this. So Devi Mahatmya says she did humkara. She produced the sound hum, and Dhumralochana went into bits and pieces. He just vanished. That was the Dhumralochana Vada. It's an entire chapter, the sixth chapter of Devi Mahatmya. Says how beautifully Devi just said hum kareneva. She just did that and Dhumralochana vanished. His entire army ran away, saw seeing what happened to Dhumralochana. And now Shumba and Ushumba were like shocked. How can a woman do this? So she must be something, surreal. And then they sent two of their most trusted lieutenants, Chanda and Munda. So the Kaushiki Devi that emanated from the form of Parvati, since she was bright and effulgent, the form of Parvati from whom this Devi came up became dark. She came to be known as Kali. And now this Kali Devi went and cut off Chanda and Munda. And therefore she was called as Chamunda Devi. Right? So she was granted boons for doing this victorious feat of slaying Chanda and Munda. And now Shumba and Nishumba are perplexed. The last card on their side was a demon called Raktabija. Now, Raktabija was peculiar. For every drop of body that shed from his blood, for every drop, a new Raktabija arose. Right? So, they didn't understand what was this about, because every time they cut off Raktabija, for every drop that spilled, a new Raktabija. So, for let's say there's 5 ml of Raktabija's blood, then that'd be around, if there are 1,000 drops in the 5 ml, just for an example, there'd be 1,000 Rakta Bija rising from that 5 ml. So this was something worrisome. And that is when Devi Mahatmya says all the Shaktis of each of the incarnations of uh, God came over to tackle these demons. So, from the Shakti of uh, Muruga, Lord Muruga, Kartikeya came Kaumari. From the Shakti of Maheshwara came Maheshwari. From the Shakti of Brahma came Brahmani. From the Shakti of Narasimha came Narasimhi. From the Shakti of Varaha came Varahi. From the Shakti of um, so there were 8 such Shaktis, I believe, and each of these Shaktis carried the same kind of uh, posture, mudras, and the same weapons as the Devatas from whom they arised. And they were there in the battlefield helping Kaushiki Devi battle Raktabija and the demons that arose from Raktabija's blood. But it was an endless war. It never ended. It went on and on, on and on. And that is when Kaushiki decided, she called Chamunda. She said, open up your mouth, let me cut Rakta Bija. Don't allow even a single drop of blood to spill. And Chamunda opened her mouth so huge that for every Rakta Bija that got slayed, all the drops of blood from his body went into Chamunda's mouth. So she had to swallow him. And that is how Raktabija got defeated. And now Shumba and Nishumba had no other option but to jump into the battlefield themselves. So Devi slayed Nishumba first and then Shumba finally. And the Devatas were now relieved. There was a huge celebration, huge shower of flowers, praises, and they convey their gratitude to Devi. And Devi says, every time there's going to be imbalance on earth, every time people seek my help, I'm going to be there to help all of them. So let us understand the inner symbolism in this story first before we go on to understanding Devi's own words. So Shumba was all about arrogance masking low self-worth, because he had collected valuables. He wanted to show that he was very valuable. Like he was the master of existence. But he was in fact masking his low self-worth. And Nishumba was all about clinging to that external validation that you need, right? When you yourself are not centered in yourself. And Rakta Bija is the repetitive negative patterns that arises from this arrogance. And if it goes unchecked, it's going to be multiplying like Rakta Bija did. So to battle these demons, Devi had to take the form of knowledge incarnation. So she turned up as Maha Saraswati, that bright, effulgent form of Kaushiki Devi that reveals self-worth, that cuts cycles of negative patterns, right? So look at your own life and see that when you stop living for others' approval, when you recognize that you are purna, complete in yourself, and when you silence the repetitive patterns, that is Mahasaraswati awakening within you, right? So Navaratri is all about this inner sadhana, identifying the Shakti within you and see how these inner demons within us, if given power to the Shakti within us, if we give enough attention to the Shakti within us, The Shakti is going to awaken us all by slaying these inner demons. And as the Devi Mahatmya and so many other Puranic texts actually say, Devi promises to come, reincarnate in whatever form that is needed to protect us, to nurture us, to save us whenever needed. So, what is all about Devi incarnating, having an avatar, that comes down? Simple. It's in a form that we relate to for a specific purpose, either to help us in our growth, in our spiritual evolution, or to cut off the obstacles that come in this growth, like the demons, right? So she comes in various forms. She herself says that, she appeared in the form of Vindyavasini, then she came as Bhima, then she came as Raktadantika, she came as Brahmari. She herself says, I take various forms whenever needed for the protection of my devotees, for the protection of my children. And this is how she appears. So, what is this thing with the worship, worshipping Devi, being connected with all this inner symbolism we see? Worship is nothing but a means, a way to stay connected with the divine in whatever form that is convenient to you. Worship can be doing rituals, worship can be singing praises, worship can be meditating, worship can be reading her stories, listening to her stories. Worship can be identifying where these inner demons are and then allowing Shakti to take over so that she can slay these demons. So let us understand Navaratris as actually this inner sadhana rather than, because the concept of God is very abstract to all of us. We think God is someone who resides as idols in temples. We go pray to them, we give them a huge to do list, and they get it done for us. No, because gods are nothing but these powers that make us overcome, that put us above these obstacles, above difficulties, and help us beat them to pulp. So, what is actually needed is to allow that divine energy, to the divine Shakti to work for us. So, it is not the abstract concept, it is not the external worship that we're talking about. Rather, external worship is designed so that at some point in time we arrive at this internal worship. So, let us now understand Navaratri as this inner sadhana, right? Because it's here to identify what is not for our highest good and cut them out. So let us understand Navaratri as 3 cycles of 3 days each. The first 3 day is when we worship Mahakali, who destroys the inner tamas, the laziness, the confusion, the delusion that accompanies indulgence, right? Just like Madhu and Kaitaba were. And every time we are going to beat this delusion to pulp, Mahakali arises within us. So the first 3 days of Navaratri is for us to contemplate where we have been overindulging, where we have been extremely lazy, where we have given way to confusion and delusion. And by affirming the presence of Mahakali, we are destroying this inner tamas. The next 3 days, days 4, 5, and 6, is for Mahalakshmi to take over. This is where we are removing arrogance, ego, right? Pride, shape shifting pride. There were times when we have refused change. There were times when we have refused to uh, let things go, right? We have not allowed balance to take over. So, identifying these things is when Mahalakshmi takes over. She gives us that power to cultivate that balance, that harmony, that prosperity. In the last 3 days, days 7, 8, 9, is when we try to understand the areas of our life where we have been dealing things with low self worth, and we mask it with arrogance, we mask it with pride, right? And the accompanying confusion. And when we identify these areas and we connect with the energy of Mahasaraswati, is when we receive wisdom, clarity, self knowledge. The 10th day, the Vijayadashmi day, is when inner victory comes, the triumph of the higher self. Devi occurs within us. So let me invite you to experience this, right? I want you to just close your eyes and ask yourself, which asura troubles me the most? Is it Madhu and Kaitava? Is it Mahishasura, who stands for ego? Is it Shumbha and Nishumba, who stand for insecurity, who stand for low self worth? And inwardly pray to the Mother Divine, O Mother, awaken in me your strength, your Shakti, and just allow Devi to take over, to destroy this laziness, this ego, this insecurity. And with this, I conclude this talk. Let us summarize what we have understood in these 40 minutes. Mahakali awakens us from laziness and confusion. Mahalakshmi gives us the courage to slay ego. And Mahasaraswati grants wisdom to overcome insecurity. And these are not just cosmic battles, they are our daily battles. And Navaratri is just the journey of awakening this goddess within. सर्वमंगल मांगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते. O Narayani, who is the source of all auspiciousness and who makes all auspicious things happen, who is the fulfiller of all goals, Gauri, who is the refuge of all. The entire world has to go to her. I bow down to you. And let us take away these principles from this talk and celebrate Navaratri as that inner battle. Thank you.